I'm here with Kim Glidden, who graduated from the Teach Now Teacher Preparation Program in May of 2022. Kim began her career in inner city Detroit as the director of education for United Way before moving abroad to be the director of a language school in Taipei, Taiwan. She has recently transitioned into a brand new role as the lead curriculum and content developer at an educational technology company. She's also teaching students in Ukraine in an online nonprofit called Engin, where she is providing trauma-informed support for students as well as teachers. Kim, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. I greatly appreciate it.
It's an honor. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey into education and how you came to study with Moreland University.
Thank you. Moreland came highly recommended to me by other teachers who had taken the program or gone through the program in Taipei. And I really wanted to secure a teaching license so that I could move into a career potentially within international schools. My original education background is I hold a master's in social work, and I was a formerly licensed therapist. I also wanted to join Moreland because Moreland provides a very cutting edge experience. It's not a traditional education program in the sense that we write papers or do research reports. It's very much a flipped classroom model. It focuses on best practices, the cutting edge research that's out there, as well as a focus on educational technology. My transition into education, or my journey into education, started when I was a child. I know today we're here to talk about trauma-informed practices, and I grew up in inner city Detroit in an environment where during my early childhood, I experienced a lot of adverse childhood experiences, including physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. I feel like that's important to disclose because I would like to lower the stigma around these issues, because without being able to talk about them openly, we can't serve our students well. So because of my own background with abuse as a child, I decided that I wanted to become a teacher because I wanted to be the adult that I wished I had when I was younger. My life changed when I read the landmark study from the CDC Kaiser Permanente Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. When I read the information in that study through my psychology program, and I saw the correlations between adverse childhood experiences and life outcomes and academic outcomes, I was entirely shocked. Trauma has such deep impacts. We know that from the latest data from the CDC, for example, that 61% of adults have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience, and that puts them at risk for 4 times the amount of depression, 12 times the amount of suicidal ideation or suicidal tendencies, as well as health outcomes such as 3 times the risk of heart disease. Early intervention is the key. We have to address trauma at this childhood stage when the brain is still developing in order to have the best long-term outcomes.
This theme of supporting the development of the whole child has been one that has been woven into all of the discussions that I've recently had with some of our experts here at Moreland, on our faculty, as well as many of the graduates from our Teach Now program and our master's degrees with regard to trauma-informed practice. So thanks for connecting that. I'd love to hear how your work at Moreland University and your background in psychology have informed the work that you're doing supporting students in Ukraine.
When I'm working with the students in Ukraine, it's very tricky because you have to acknowledge the reality of their situation, but also make sure that you're not re-traumatizing them. Because for some of those students, that classroom is the only safe and normal space they have where they can be themselves during their day. Once the webcam goes off, they go back to the reality of the war. So I have to be very careful in allowing students the opportunity to have a safe space within the classroom where they can express their emotional distress, where they can express their emotional needs, where they can have social emotional connections with one another and develop peer support, but also make sure that I'm not re-traumatizing them by bringing up the crisis that they're currently in. So that is a balancing act I think that we have to do with all students, is to recognize their trauma, to validate their trauma, but to also create a space that is not focused solely around their trauma. And that's difficult to do. That's very difficult to do.
What social and emotional learning and trauma-informed strategies can teachers use, in your view, to create a safe and nurturing learning environment for both students and teachers?
Well, it's a little bit of a controversial issue, but one thing I do believe in strongly that we started the interview with is self-disclosure. Letting students know that I'm a human being and that I also have human emotions and that I also have been a person that's experienced adverse childhood incidents, humanizes me to my students in a way that allows them to open up to me. Also, giving students language, just verbal language around how to express their emotions is very important. In my work as a therapist, I would often see adults who had experienced trauma not even have the vocabulary to express their own emotions adequately. We know that trauma affects our brain in different ways, and one way that affects our brain is our prefrontal cortex. That's where our executive functioning happens, our learning happens, our higher cognitive processes happen. And when we're going to teach students social emotional learning, we want to activate that part of the brain as well, to help them with self-regulation, to help them with executive function, and also, again, just to provide them even with the words to use to talk about what they're experiencing so that they can express themselves.
Thank you so much for sharing with us about your history with Moreland, your transition from working as a teacher to now working in an ed tech company, and the important work you're doing helping students in Ukraine. I'm inspired to learn how not only you've been able to leverage your background in psychology to inform your teaching, but also how Moreland has helped to ignite a passion for you for educational technology. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you to you and also the Moreland team and professors for not only providing an excellent program, but for offering all of these extensive professional development opportunities. I'm very confident that as a Moreland alumni, I'll continue to be provided with opportunities to learn about the newest best practices, the newest trends in research, the newest trends in technology, as I continue to be a lifetime alum.